Suddenly, strange lights emanated from within the cave. Ruby frowned in confusion. Behind her, Popo and Griffin were rummaging through a pile of jewels beneath their feet, joyfully tossing them into the air. Ruby frowned and asked, "What are you guys doing?" She suddenly felt a sharp pain in her foot and instinctively touched it. Beneath her hand, something sparkled. Her face flushed as she picked up a stone, examined it, and exclaimed, "Oh my God, is this a ruby?" Seeing Popo and Griffin playing around with the jewels, Ruby was speechless. She stammered to herself, "So, does that mean this whole pile?" Ruby became excited, shouting with them, "Is this the legendary fortune?" Even Popo and Griffin rolled around in the pile of rubies with joy. Ruby, equally enthusiastic, yelled, "This is insane!" Her eyes sparkled like the gems as she stared at the pile. "If all of this is real, I could become the richest person in the world." Ruby noticed a huge gem protruding from behind a rock. She slowly walked toward it, frowning, wondering, "Is this also a gem?" Ruby gently touched the large stone, thinking it was just a gem, but it trembled beneath her hand. She quickly withdrew her hand, noticing the slight movement. The cave began to shake. All three of them panicked, their mouths agape. Ruby looked up, fear gripping her heart. "What's happening?" Fragments of earth began to fall from the ceiling of the cave. Ruby realized the imminent danger just as a giant dragon appeared, roaring with its wide-open mouth and sharp fangs. The rain poured down even harder as the knights continued their journey into the forest. Finally, one of the knights, clearly confused, spoke up. "Sir, do you really believe what that thief said?" Andy, the aide, asked softly, "The blonde witch? They said the witch is in the restricted area." Isaac's expression was cold and unresponsive. Ivan spoke up in support. "All right, Isaac, let's just assume what they said is true, but the possibility that it's your wife..." Isaac glared at the man behind him, scornfully. "Go and confirm. If you're all tired, just go back." Evan felt like grabbing Isaac by the collar and giving him a piece of his mind. His hand clenched, but the knight beside him tried to calm him down. The blue-haired man also couldn't understand Isaac's intentions. "But why did you only bring us this far into the forest? Wouldn't it be easier to search with more people?" Isaac replied coldly, "Because I don't trust the others." He only dared to ask those closest to him for help in finding his wife. Andy widened his eyes in astonishment. Ivan and the blue-haired man were both creeped out by Isaac's words. "Is he a monster?" it seemed to imply. "It seems like lack of sleep has driven him mad," one of them whispered. Isaac tightened his grip on his sword, his gaze dropping. A sense of dread rose within him, because if she's really in the restricted area, there's no reason why she'd still be alive, Isaac thought, reflecting on everything that had happened. The frequent appearances of monsters, unprecedented since Ruby's arrival. She had always been at the center of these incidents. He recalled the words Sir G had spoken. "Madam's core temperature is much higher than a normal person's." Dr. Sir G had examined Ruby the day she had the nosebleed. Small nagging suspicions had piled up, leading Isaac to strange conclusions. "Hey, Isaac!" Ivan's voice cut through the pouring rain. "Stop for a bit." Ivan approached Isaac with concern. "I have a bad feeling about this. Rom's cave is nearby, isn't it?" The blue-haired knight behind them snapped irritably. "Ivan, stop it!" Ivan ignored the warning and continued his speculation. "If your wife really did enter here, who knows what might have..." Suddenly the ground shook violently and Isaac froze. A terrifying roar echoed through the downpour. The four close knights quickly huddled together, fearfully glancing around. This sound, could it be? A woman's scream pierced the rain, making Isaac freeze even more. He was very familiar with that voice. Ruby's group was terrified by the giant dragon, realizing they were no match for it. Ruby's face paled and cold sweat dripped down her skin. She repeatedly apologized, her voice shaky. "I'm sorry, I really am. We didn't mean to come here." The dragon in front of them seemed to be fuming, its fearsome eyes fixed on them, seemingly unforgiving. Popo and Griffin hid behind Ruby, who was trying to calm herself. The dragon bared its sharp teeth. Ruby spoke sweetly. "We'll leave quietly, so please forgive us just this once." Another scream echoed as the giant dragon lifted Ruby up to its face. Ruby's face was ashen, and tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm going to be eaten. My end is near. My fate wasn't supposed to be dragon food." Ruby screamed, her heart racing with fear. Suddenly, Popo lunged at the dragon, trying to rescue her. Ruby cried out in surprise, terrified it would get hurt. Griffin also helped, pecking at the dragon repeatedly, but it was nothing to the massive creature. Seeing the dragon grow even angrier, Ruby called out to them worriedly, "No, run away!" Facing the dragon, Ruby realized it was only targeting her. Almost losing hope, she murmured, "Help me," knowing that no one would appear. But then, to her surprise, the dragon gently placed her back down onto the pile of rubies. Ruby, having narrowly escaped death, knelt down and looked up at the dragon in disbelief. Her body trembled. Did it understand what I said? Ruby glanced at the enormous dragon, puffing smoke in front of her. Seizing the opportunity, she slowly began to move, trying to escape. However, Rom the dragon wouldn't let her go. It wrapped its tail around her and Ruby froze, her face filled with panic. Rom brought its face close to hers, growling menacingly. "What's wrong with you?" Ruby asked, frightened but still trying to be gentle, taking cautious steps. But Ra refused to let her go, causing Ruby to scream in terror. "Don't tell me it wants to keep me here to play with it." Ruby had a daring theory. She calmed herself down, looking resolutely at the dragon. "I said, let me go," Ruby ordered. The dragon brought its face closer to hers and slowly bared its sharp teeth. Ruby's resolute gaze vanished and her face paled. She backed away in fear, her heart pounding. The dragon started spitting out more rubies onto the ground, creating a loud noise. The pile of sparkling rubies beneath Ruby's feet grew even larger. Ruby froze. Having backed away, she was now a considerable distance from the dragon. "You... what do you mean?" Ruby couldn't understand the dragon's intentions and was about to step forward to ask when Popo grabbed her cloak from behind. The dragon immediately sensed something amiss and lunged forward, baring its teeth. Ruby was startled. Above her, Griffin was holding Popo's ears, and Popo was clinging to her clothes, pulling both of them toward the cave entrance. Ruby cried out in panic, "What are you guys doing?" The dragon charged forward, determined not to let her go. Ruby looked up at the cave entrance in the distance and yelled to Griffin, "We have to get out of the cave entrance quickly." Griffin immediately roared an acknowledgement. All three of them escaped just as the dragon reached the mouth of the cave. The dragon's sharp claws missed Ruby, and the dragon expressed its frustration at seeing Ruby floating further and further away in the sky. Hearing the enraged roar, Ruby habitually glanced back. Finally, the three of them landed on the ground, panting. A cold atmosphere settled over them. Ruby sighed. What kind of dragon was that? Popo and Griffin, also exhausted, leaned against each other, unable to bear the cold. Ruby exclaimed, "It's so cold," looking up to see a blanket of white snow beginning to fall. Ruby gasped, "Oh, it's snowing." Sparkling snowflakes gently fell before her eyes. "It's the first snow," she murmured, holding out her hand to catch the snowflakes. Her heart filled with joy as she continued to look up, delighted. Her soul felt cleansed, and a joyful expression flitted across her face. "You!" A voice startled Ruby. Could it be? She clutched her chest, her heart pounding. No way, no way! Finally, Ruby turned around in astonishment. Standing before her was Isaac, the person she had been longing for, actually standing there unharmed. Isaac couldn't believe his eyes. He had hoped she was alive, but now Ruby was standing before him unharmed. "How did you get here?" Ruby clasped her hands together, tears welling up in Isaac's eyes. Two fearsome-looking monsters were rushing toward them from behind, but Isaac, unafraid, reached for the sword he always carried. He swiftly drew it, a flash of electricity arcing across it. "Get away from those creatures," Isaac shouted to Ruby. "Don't come any closer." Isaac was taken aback by her words. He froze for a moment. "Please," Ruby pleaded, her heart aching. "Just leave me alone." Covered in mud, Ruby tearfully begged Isaac to spare her. Isaac gritted his teeth, remaining silent but feeling a surge of discomfort within him. Isaac started to approach her, but Ruby backed away, her expression full of disgust. "I told you to go away." Isaac's eyes narrowed. It was the first time he had seen her treat him this way. Isaac slowly reached out to grab Ruby, but she darted away, out of his sight, leaving him stunned and bewildered. "I want to disappear like this forever," Ruby thought miserably. "My soul can't escape this horrible life." Even in this world where she couldn't distinguish between reality and illusion, she was still suffering. The fake expressions of the people here had shattered Ruby's hopes for the present. She blamed herself for being foolish enough to expect a real family in this place. She was disgusted by it, and didn't want to go back. She hated the thought of it. "Please, just leave me alone," Ruby whispered. Barefoot, Ruby stumbled on a rock and fell face first into the snow, crying out in pain. She lay sprawled on the cold snow, but it wasn't just her body that hurt. Her soul and spirit ached intensely. Ruby clenched her fists, trying to appear strong. Finally, she couldn't hold back the tears any longer. Amidst the thick snow, Ruby lay there sobbing. "I don't want to live in this place anymore." A loud noise erupted behind Ruby, and she stopped crying abruptly, fear gripping her. Ruby's eyes widened in shock as she sat up. Directly in front of her was a giant monster. Ra, the dragon, had caught up to her and was growling menacingly. But this time, Ruby didn't run. She closed her eyes, accepting her fate. "This," she murmured, "is better than—" Ruby seemed resigned, willing to accept her fate rather than return. Remembering Ruby's tearful face and the words of hatred she had spoken, Isaac felt a strange emotion stir within him. It was the first time he had witnessed her like this. Even though every time we met she would tell me lies, she would always smile brightly when she saw me. Isaac was still blaming himself. If I had asked her sooner, could things have changed? What happened in Ruby's past? What did she have to endure that even now she can't find peace for even a moment? Why did she desperately want to stay by my side, even though she was afraid of me? A growl suddenly reached Isaac's ears as the other knights caught up. "What's going on?" Ivan called out to Isaac, snapping him out of his thoughts. "I heard a noise coming from this direction. Look, up there." The dragon was carrying Ruby back to its cave. The knights were astonished. "Wait a minute. Isn't that Madame?" one of them asked. Isaac gritted his teeth in anger. "Even though there are countless things I don't understand," he muttered, before suddenly running deeper into the forest, leaving the stunned knights behind. "Hey, Isaac!" they called out, but they couldn't stop him. "I can't leave her like this," Isaac thought, urgency driving him forward. Ruby woke up, groggy, feeling the cold air around her. She opened her eyes slightly, unsure of where she was. Her hands moved involuntarily, groping to assess the situation. She was surprised to touch something unfamiliar. The steady growling continued beside her ear, and she quickly pulled her hand back. The dragon's expression was no longer fearsome. It glanced gently at Ruby, who stared at it in disbelief. "How am I still alive?" Seeing her awake, the dragon brought its face closer to examine her, startling Ruby. Then it gently nuzzled its face against her cheek. "What's this?" Ruby thought, completely confused. "Wasn't it going to eat me?" Seeing that the dragon seemed harmless, Ruby cautiously reached out to pet it. "Why did you bring me here? Back then you should have just let me... Ruby trailed off. The dragon immediately nuzzled her again, as if comforting her. Then it looked at her with gentle eyes, its growl soft. Ruby clasped her hands and murmured, "What is this? It's like it's comforting me." "I wonder if Popo and Griffin are all right," Ruby thought, her heart sinking. "They just wanted to help me." Suddenly, a throbbing pain shot through her injured foot, causing Ruby to cry out. She lifted her bare foot, revealing a swollen red wound. Ruby winced. Ow! Her foot was likely swollen from the fall. A blister had formed, and the cold air made it even more painful. The dragon dropped a shimmering sprig of lily-of-the-valley herb onto the ground. It glanced at Ruby. Ruby frowned, picking up the herb and examining it. Could it be? Although she didn't know what kind of herb it was, she realized the dragon had given it to her to treat her wound. She asked, "Is this for my injury?" The dragon nodded vigorously, then gently touched Ruby. Ruby hugged the dragon, and Ra lowered its head, nuzzling her again. "A strange dragon," Ruby whispered into its ear. "Or maybe I'm the strange one. Thank you so much." Before she could finish, a cold, menacing voice echoed from outside the cave. "Is this the best hiding place you could find?" Ruby froze. The wind howled even louder. Isaac stood at the cave entrance, his face cold as he looked inside. Ruby's heart pounded in terror as she looked at him. Isaac stared at Ruby, his heart filled with an immense ache. Slowly he entered the cave, his hand gripping the hilt of his sword. "An intruder," he muttered. The dragon suddenly rose, its fearsome nature resurfacing. Ruby flinched, her heart leaping into her throat. Isaac, fearless except where Ruby was concerned, held his sparking sword. "You dare roar at me after kidnapping my wife?" Isaac growled. Ruby tensed, thinking, "It's all my fault. I can't let it get hurt because of me." "Stop." She gritted her teeth, clutching the herb tightly. In a swift movement, she threw the herb at Isaac. The herb hit Isaac squarely in the face. He was stunned by her action. "What have I done?" Ruby panicked, now realizing how foolish she had been. "What if he gets even angrier?" She was sweating profusely, unable to control her impulsive action. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw it so hard," Ruby cried out. Isaac cursed, clutching his face. "Damn it," he muttered, clearly caught off guard. The dragon, baring its sharp fangs, prepared to attack, but Ruby immediately stopped it. "No, stop!" Seeing Ruby's pleading eyes and the reassuring shake of her head, the dragon finally relented, obediently withdrawing. Ruby sighed in relief, but also confusion. Did I throw it too hard? Why is he just standing there? She glanced at Isaac without daring to meet his eyes. Isaac, staggered, began approaching her. Ruby, now even more frightened, repeated, "I didn't know. I was with the other animals. Where should I start explaining?" Her heart sank as she saw Isaac's cold expression and frightening eyes. Why did things turn out this way? She thought. I had absolutely no intention of running away. But even though Ruby knew Isaac would never believe her, she still had to explain. "I have to clear my name. I had nothing to do with what happened to Miss Freya." Ruby bowed her head before Isaac. "I know you won't believe me," she faltered, tears welling in her eyes. "I also know you think I'm a witch who controls monsters, but I really didn't do anything." Ruby cried in anguish, feeling as if everyone, even Isaac, suspected her. "I didn't intentionally run away," she sobbed. "I was just so tired. I fainted. And then the monsters took care of me. They didn't do anything wrong." Ruby wiped her tears away, but the more she tried to stop them, the more they flowed. "I will endure any punishment," she whispered through her tears. "Please, please, don't send me back to Romania." Isaac slowly reached out his hand, kneeling in front of her. He touched her cheek, gently wiping away the tears of grief. "I won't do that," Isaac assured her, his voice softening. "Don't cry anymore." Ruby stared at him, stunned. Isaac, who had always been so cold, was now showing her tenderness. He even pulled out a pair of shoes from his pocket and slowly put them on Ruby's feet. "I promise you," Isaac said, his voice steady, "I won't let anyone call you a witch." He froze for a moment when he saw Ruby's swollen red feet. I'm sorry, he murmured, a genuine apology in his voice. Ruby, still confused, looked up at Isaac. You said I was troublesome, she whispered, that you were annoyed with me and also hated me. You were the one who wanted me to disappear more than anyone, didn't you? Didn't you believe that Freya was hurt because of me? Isaac looked at her, his expression unreadable, and then glanced away, saying nothing. Ruby's heart sank, feeling as though nothing had changed. But then, Isaac surprised her again. He reached out his hand, kneeling on one knee, and softly said, "Let's go back." Ruby froze, her eyes wide. She couldn't believe what he was saying. He's asking me to come back, she thought, astonished. The dragon beside them let out a few growls. Ruby turned to the creature, observing it for a long time. After a moment, she made her decision. Taking Isaac's hand, she agreed to return with him. The snow outside fell heavier. Inside the cave, Isaac hugged Ruby tightly, surprising her. He comforted her, his voice soft. "Everything's all right now," he whispered, holding her tighter, his fingers gently brushing through her hair. At that moment, Ruby couldn't hold back the pain that had been welling up in her heart. Tears streamed down her face as the emotions she couldn't hide suddenly burst out. Isaac, too, felt the heartache, his own emotions stirred by her sorrow. The awkward but warm hands around her made her heart flutter. Everything calmed as she closed her eyes. In her drowsiness, she thought, "Whose familiar hand is this? Whose voice worries about me every time I'm sick?" The image of her sister appeared before her. "Why are you kneeling down? What if you get sick here?" Ruby immediately grabbed her sister's hand, but the image slowly faded away. The hand also disappeared, leaving Ruby with a sense of longing. "I really don't know what to do anymore," she thought. "If only I could talk to her just once. If I could find someone here to talk to, would things be different?" Later, in the large room, Ruby dimly opened her eyes and looked at her palms. Her cheek suddenly flushed slightly, remembering the moment when Isaac held her tightly. In that instant, it felt like she was embraced by the whole world. He really didn't send me back then. Even as she thought this, someone called her name. "Ruby, are you all right?" Hearing the voice, Ruby slowly sat up. The atmosphere between them suddenly became awkward and indescribable. Then the other girl spoke first. "I'm sorry," she said, surprising Ruby a little. "I didn't mean to push you like that day." Ruby awkwardly replied, her words robotic. "I'm fine. It's over. Don't worry about it." The other girl's eyes glanced at Ruby's face, studying her expression before speaking again. "As expected, you didn't ask anything. Actually, my mother also had that mark on her hand. Since last year, before she passed away, she gradually became weak." Ruby, trying to comfort her, fidgeted with her hands anxiously. "My mother had a very serious mental illness. She was obsessed with even skin injuries." Ruby listened quietly, thinking back to her own painful memories. The girl continued, remembering her childhood. "One night, I entered my mother's room and saw her prostrate on the floor. She turned and looked at me, drool at the corners of her mouth, eyes wide and unseeing. Suddenly, she grabbed my head. "Tell me, Ellen, do you think your mother is very bad?" The words made the little girl tremble with fear. "No, I didn't teach you wrong, Ellen. My dear child, why did I become such a bad mother?" Her mother's voice grew softer. "Remember, Ellen, you must not tell anyone what you just saw, or I will kill myself in front of everyone." Back in the present, Ellen pursed her lips bitterly. "Only I and a few servants knew about my mother's illness." Ruby, deep in thought, reflected on her own life. "It reminds me of my sister. She was the only one who treated me well in my past life, and she took the same steps as the deceased concubine. Seeing her like that, I became like that too." Ellen's voice broke through her thoughts. "Ruby, please don't tell my husband about this." Ellen then asked, "Ruby, do you have a sister?" Ruby looked confused, her face showing her uncertainty. "It's nothing, I was just rambling. Ellen quickly added, "But because the frost dragon has awakened, the holy knights are extremely busy. Everyone anticipated this situation, so you don't need to be too scared. However, for the time being, you still shouldn't go out alone." Ruby was still perplexed. "I'm the one who woke up the frost dragon? Didn't Isaac say anything to her?" Ellen continued, "Ruby fainted in the frost forest. Some people from the defense team found you, and then Isaac and the others went to look for you. They're discussing the reward right now." Sitting next to Ellen, Ruby still couldn't grasp what was going on. What is she talking about? Meanwhile, the man was lost in thought, his mind a jumble of conflicting emotions. "An act of kindness doesn't suit someone like you. You must have put aside the interests between the two countries and immediately put the girl on the man's boat." Something was bothering him, but he couldn't refute it. "Why does my heart feel so troubled?" He put his glass down on the table and said, "I heard you turned the capital upside down for 4 days straight." Isaac replied, "She is the Pope's daughter. She is also my wife. I acknowledge your efforts in recent days, but if that feeling only stems from a sense of responsibility, then that's enough. Because if you let yourself be swayed by that stupid feeling, you'll regret it later." Isaac paused, his gaze distant. "At times like these, you look more like her than Ellen." The scene shifted to a tea table. "It's fortunate that Madam is safe," said Baron, the commander of the Linnis Holy Knights, bowing his head. "Thank you for your concern, but why do you look like a drowned rat?" Isaac raised an eyebrow. "Although you can't jump for joy because of that commotion," he said, his tone slightly mocking. "I wonder if your wife has ever run away from home?" Baron was caught off guard by the question. Run away from home? Well, she's been to her parents' house, but... So, that's what you're worried about? Isaac's voice took on a sharper edge. "What, did your wife run away because she hated seeing your face?" Baron chuckled. "That's not it. It would be better if she said that." "I didn't expect you to be able to reflect on yourself," Baron continued, his tone light-hearted. "It's thanks to your wife that I get to see this interesting side of you." He then fell silent, his gaze studying Isaac for a moment before speaking again. Don't tell me. You look at your wife like that too?" Isaac, as if struck a nerve, turned away, muttering, "I don't know how to treat her." Suddenly, Baron stood up. "Of course, a fool like you wouldn't know anything anyway. Aren't you still in the honeymoon phase? There's only one right answer. You must treat her well until her anger subsides. Give her gifts, attend aristocratic parties with her, and constantly show remorse. As for the rest, you know what to do." Recalling Baron's words made Isaac think deeply as he walked. Then someone called him from behind. "You must have reported to the captain, right?" The atmosphere became quiet and awkward. The blue-haired man shouted, "Why isn't anyone saying anything? If we're discovered having intercourse with the guards..." Before he could finish, Isaac interrupted him, making everyone frown. "So what? What else can you do? Go ahead and shout it out loud." Hearing such provocation made Isaac furious. "Are you threatening us just because of that Boar woman? Do you think this is a joke? Even if you try to hide it like this in the end, we'll be the ones held responsible. Do you understand, Ivan?" "That's right, he's right," Ivan added, standing in the position of a coward. "It's natural to be afraid." After that, they argued back and forth, no one backing down. Then the blonde Ivan said, "Hey, can we just deal with him? Shutting this guy up is enough." Isaac responded, "How do we know this isn't a trick from Ragman? Because she herself doesn't know about this. If that holy father-in-law intends to tease the North with his daughter's talent, things won't just stop here. To judge that this is a conspiracy from Romania was based on too little evidence, though." Isaac continued, "I agree the captain probably knows that even if many people find out, it's not a good thing. But what are we going to do later?" Isaac thought to himself, "Is this a question I can answer? Do I dare to answer?" It was natural for children to resemble their parents, but he didn't want to be like them, especially not in that way. Even feelings could be blown away by a gentle breeze. His thoughts drifted back to his mother, the woman who was both the Princess of Britannia and the Duchess of Omar. Although she lived her whole life in power and admiration, she couldn't escape the swamp of unhappiness. In the end, she ended her own life. Isaac was the first to find her in that cold state, the burning feelings they once shared turning into a fire that consumed everything and ended in regret. He couldn't understand, and didn't want to, but there were so many questions. Even though his mother had become a ghost, he still wanted to see her again. That was the reason he became a holy knight. The evidence of that foolishness gripped him every day. Even if I meet her again, what can I do? The reason Isaac brushed aside talk of marriage every time was simple. Their blood also flows in me. The fear of taking the same steps, repeating his mother's tragic path. If I take her back to Romania, I can go back to my old life, he thought. But why did I deceive everyone and even threaten my teammates? Why can't I let her go? The moment Ruby cried out, "I don't know anymore, I'm with the monsters," Isaac thought, is this a provocation? He recalled his own words. If you let yourself be swept away by that nonsense feeling, you'll regret it later. Compassion, a sense of responsibility, this uncomfortable feeling that tormented him. Is this just compassion? He had initially thought Ruby was provoking him for a divorce, but even someone who knew nothing about love like him could tell that when she said, "I could hit you," those words didn't come from love. Why was she so scared? What was she expecting from him? He couldn't find the answers. Who pushed her to that point? Who could do that to the Pope's precious daughter? How could Cardinal Valentino leave those who wanted to destroy his sister like that? Isaac suppressed the suspicion that Valentino was afraid of being harmed if he touched them. Sometimes burying it helps ease the pain. Since my mother's passing, it seems like everything has been like that. At that moment, Isaac violently attacked the servants. "It's clearly a trick you all played together. Wouldn't it be unfair to kill just you?" The other servants knelt down in fear, begging, "Pray for my wife to wake up safely, because if anything happens to her, I will destroy all of you." After the warning, Isaac gently walked to his wife's room. "It's so frustrating. If only you were a little selfish." Sitting next to his wife, Isaac was silent. Then he reached out and gently stroked her hair. "If you were just an ordinary person, you wouldn't have to endure this pain." The scene shifted to a solemn cathedral. A messenger raven flew in and landed on Cesari's shoulder. The letter it carried contained a lot of writing. Cesari read it, pondered for a moment, and then said, "Is it Ruby? It seems you were very worried." The hooded figure glanced over. "I heard the search lasted for 4 days. Although I don't know what you're worried about. Hasn't she returned home safely? You can bear a little of that, I'm sure. But the reason you're wavering like this is because you're uncomfortable with the scene exceeding your expectations." "Right," Cyrus replied. "Come on, a comedy must have such interesting scenes. Who would have guessed that such a well-behaved girl could cause such a big commotion? It must be quite novel for you, and also for that wooden brother-in-law of yours." Hearing the words brother-in-law didn't make Cyrus happy inside. "To me, it's just a title, used and discarded like a piece of scrap paper, nothing more, nothing less." "But this time it's different," Cyrus continued. "The father who wants to fight strong opposition from all around to send Ruby away, and the Northern Holy Knight decided to carry out this marriage in place of his sister. It's annoying that he dared to marry Ruby on his own, but I also predict that even if that abstinent fellow sees my Ruby, he'll be perfectly suited for this long-running comedy." He paused, his voice darkening. "But why is it so dark like this? That disgusting hand took Ruby's hand and turned away with her. I want to chop that bastard's hand off." Even though he wanted to immediately fulfill his duty as an older brother, right now it was a bit difficult. The mysterious person looked at him in surprise, but then he changed his attitude in a cunning, mystical way. So, can I do as I please? Cyrus replied. Have you ever not been like that? Don't miss anything, even the smallest details. With that, he turned away, cold eyes gleaming. Until I personally go there. Back in Ruby's room, the fever had subsided. Madam, you shouldn't overexert yourself, the doctor advised. If you want to recover quickly, you need to get enough sleep. You should take a walk once a day. Seeing her indifference to his words, the doctor asked, Have you heard anything I've been saying? Uli mumbled in agreement. Afterward, the maid and doctor bowed their heads and left. Ruby thought to herself, regarding the truth of this incident, besides those who were present in the frosty forest, does anyone else know? Outside in the garden, the little girl excitedly asked, Does Romania also have dragons? I heard they don't have them here. Seeing the sparkling, expectant eyes of the two little girls, Ruby didn't know how to explain. Just as she was about to speak, someone approached. The little girl turned her head and called, Brother! Ruby flinched and slowly turned her head to look. Isaac had arrived, accompanied by his brother. His face was still as handsome as ever. Ruby froze, thinking, It's been so long since that day. I haven't seen him in ages. She was just about to get back into character, but her mouth was too stiff to speak. Ivan bowed and said with a smile, Greetings, Princess Aran. Greetings, madam. It's a great relief that you've recovered. Ruby forced a smile. It's a pleasure to meet you. I apologize for worrying you before. I thought you would hate me after that day, she thought, trying to stand but accidentally tripping over the table leg. Taken by surprise, her body fell forward uncontrollably. Fortunately, Isaac caught her, and she landed gently against his chest. Nice to see you, Isaac said, but what have I done? I think you should rest some more. Let me call Sergi. Ruby quickly declined. I'm so happy to see you. That's why I'm afraid you'll never want to see me again because everyone went through so much trouble because of me. Aaron suddenly shouted, Let's eat cake. Ivan quickly said, You should be more polite outside. Why are you acting like a tomboy? The little girl replied, But brother is also the one who curses all day long. Embarrassed by his sister's words, he whispered, You really are the Duchess too. Seeing the two of them so close made Ruby feel happy. Isaac, noticing this, also felt a strange sensation in his heart. Then he leaned closer to her and whispered, I'm carefully protecting Ruby. His words made her blush a little. The two then gazed into each other's eyes, lost in the moment. On that freezing winter night, snow covered the sky as Isaac carried her in his arms. The frost dragon watched over them, following step by step, its eyes never leaving them. Ruby reached out, wanting to touch the dragon. As her hand brushed its chin, it felt like a goodbye. Suddenly, she felt something strange in her hand. She withdrew her hand to find a sparkling red ruby resting in her palm. Back in the present, Ruby thought to herself, So, he was talking about the gem the frost dragon gave me. Blushing, she replied, Thank you. In that case, I'll give you that. Isaac just looked at her silently. The tea party continued. Eat some more of this, Isaac said, offering her a pudding. His eyes were still cold, but his actions were much warmer than before. Ellen, seeing this, said, This is soft, so it'll be easier for you to eat. Her younger sister also gave her a plate of cake. Ruby felt awkward between the two of them, but both cakes were really delicious and suited her taste. I'm used to their inapproachable aura, Ruby thought to herself. I can't help it. It's just that it's been a while since I've tasted such delicious food. Eleanor asked, Brother? Didn't His Majesty say anything about the frost dragon? Isaac replied, Not much. The temple is considering putting it up as a competition item. Is that even possible? Ivan asked with sparkling eyes. If it's a young individual, it's possible, Duchess, but the frost dragon is a rare species, so most opinions are to release it back into the wild first. Hearing that, Ruby thought to herself, so, that little dragon is still a child. They've been hunted down, so if any are left, they've probably been abandoned. Ellen said, that being said, the more active dragons are, the more other magical beasts will increase as well. Not necessarily, Isaac countered. If you consider the number of magical beasts that the little dragon preys on, the number increasing and the number being eaten are about the same. Little Arian was still fiddling with her dragon-shaped cake. She said, dragons are so pitiful. Ruby felt the same way, especially as the frost dragon had awakened because of her. Isaac glanced at Ruby, probably sensing her feelings at that moment. In the afternoon, the two of them were walking around the grounds. Isaac, walking behind her, said, "Is it okay for you to wander around like this now?" She turned and replied, "Sergi told me to walk for more than 30 minutes every day. I haven't walked at all. Just now he suddenly stopped me." Isaac quickly matched her pace. "So that's it," he said. She quickly tried to sneak away faster. "Why does he keep following me?" After a while, the atmosphere became more pleasant. Isaac intentionally walked faster to be beside her and then secretly took Ruby's hand in his. "I'm so glad you're okay," he said. His words stunned her for a moment. "No, I can't have such wishful thinking. That only happened for a moment. I'm sure if I make even a small mistake, I'll be sent back immediately." Isaac suddenly said, "Let me ask you this. Those runaway friends of yours, was that the first time you met them in the frosty forest?" Hearing him ask, Ruby froze. Her face filled with panic. "Your expression seems to say the answer is no," she replied. "I met Griffin for the first time in the frosty forest. As for Puri, it's a long story. I first met Puri at the previous writing competition. She spent some time recounting everything that had happened that day. After she finished speaking, Isaac just listened silently, without asking any questions. Ruby wondered, "I wonder what's happened to Puri and Griffin now?" He replied, "They weren't captured but released immediately." Hearing that, Ruby breathed a sigh of relief. "Besides that, was there anything else? Did you meet anyone near the temple?" Ruby's head was full of question marks. What kind of trap is this? She thought of the people she saw at the temple, but couldn't say anything. She quickly shook her head in denial. Isaac sighed and said, "Thinking about it now, it seems like you weren't running away from home, but we kidnapped you.